Hello, everybody. Um, we've just concluded the burial, and we're still in the cemetery itself. So um, we just have to, be sensitive to the surroundings. And if the Avelim happen to walk by where we're driving, it's very, very packed here. Then we'll stop for a moment just to say, just to be benachim. Okay, so Parshas Acharei Mos Kedoshim. Could it be any more perfect? Something that we point out every year when we hit Parshas Acharei Mos is that it's the end of a parenthetical parsha. What I mean to say is that Acharei Mos Shnei Bnei Aharon. It says in the beginning of our parsha that Hashem spoke to Moshe after the death of the two sons of Aaron, Hashem Vayamusu, when they came close before Hashem and they died. And you understand that on the surface, the Torah had no reason to tell you that, because we know that it's after the two sons of Aaron died. They died 3 weeks ago in Parshas Shmini. So why would you open up a parsha with "and Hashem said" after the sons of Aaron died? Like saying "and Hashem said" after the moon had been created. You know the moon had been created. So what that means is, what that's coming to tell you is that if you actually look at the beginning of Sefer Vayikra, it's astounding, because the beginning of Shmini describes to you the inauguration of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, of the moving temple. And this day was beyond comprehension and beyond words to describe the happiness and the joy that the people felt. And just to give you a little bit of a in case you don't remember, because it was a while ago, it was a few weeks ago, when the fire came down. Do you understand what that must be like? I mean, obviously I don't understand what that must be like either, but from an experiential perspective, the Jews are all sitting there waiting for the Mishkan to be activated, and they don't know how it's going to happen. They don't know what it's going to be like. And then all of a sudden, fire literally comes out of the heavens. What that looked like, I don't really know. I imagine it to have been lightning, but it doesn't have to be lightning. I'll tell you in a moment why I imagined that it was lightning. And it says that and a fire went out from before God, and it devoured on the Mizbeach. And it just so happened that at that moment, at that very, very moment, the two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Abihu, who were two of the most important people in the entirety of our people, it happens to be that at that moment, nobody noticed, they were inside the Mishkan trying to bring what they thought was a great idea as a sacrifice to God, the Ketorah, the incense. And it says, and a fire went out from before Hashem and it devoured them. And the Gemara explains that it's Sreifas Neshama V'Guf Kayim, which means their neshama, their souls were burned, meaning they died, but their bodies, however, were intact. But what kind of a fire that comes out from heaven would kill somebody and yet leave their body intact? Havi Omer is a lightning, but I don't know. I can't swear to it. But if I had to bet on it, that's where I would put my money. But what's even more interesting is it's the exact same words as the fire that came out to devour on the Mizbeach. Meaning, if you look in the beginning of Parshas Shmini, all of those offerings that Aaron takes and puts onto the Mizbeach, the Mizbeach wasn't lit. So when it says he made his chatos, he made his olah, he made it, when he did all of those karbanot, there were cold cuts. And then the fire comes out and devours, and it's the exact same language because it's the exact same fire. Meaning the fire that came to zap the Mizbeach, and it says Vaygar ha'om vayoronu vayiplu al pneihem. The people saw this and they vayoronu. The word rejoice doesn't really capture it. It's a glee. it's ecstasy. It's really religious ecstasy when you see that Hashem is putting a fire out from heaven to accept your offering. That's pretty darn glorious. And they just fell down on their faces with joy and with awe. And of course, what they didn't know is that 100 feet away from them, Nadav and Avihu lay dead from that exact same fire. And then immediately after that happens, bam, the Torah goes on a tangent. The Torah opens parentheses. And the Torah says, by the way, this is the beginning of Parshas Shmini. This is the first 20% of the Parshas Shmini, which is supposed to be talking about the inauguration of the Mishkan. And all of a sudden it stops right after the deaths of Nadav and Avihu. And it starts telling you, by the way, these are the laws of Tuma and Tara, purity and impurity, and these are and by the way, before it tells you the laws of purity and impurity, it begins by telling you the laws of kashrut. These are the animals that you're allowed to eat, these are the animals that you're not allowed to eat, and after that I'm going to tell you what happens if you have a period, or if you give birth to a baby, or if someone happens to be Yosei Bazera, and what happens if there's a Zav and a Zava and a Mitzora. Okay, thank you very much for telling me that now. Obviously you couldn't put it off to like a more appropriate place. Now's the time. And then immediately after I'm finished with that, do you understand the end of Parshas Mitzora? The end of Parshas Mitzora is the culmination of the Tuma laws. This is what happens when anyone gets Tameh. Boom, and Hashem says to Moshe after the death of Nadav and Avihu of Shnei Bnei Aaron. That means that 80% of the Parsha of Shmini and the entirety of Tazria and the entirety of Mitzora is within a parenthetical grouping. It's in parentheses. And the Torah is saying that now we're going to get back to where I left off before. So that frames Shmini, Tazria, Mitzora, Acharei Mos, and Kedoshim in a very different light. It means that whatever Hashem is about to tell you in the Parshas of Acharei Mos and Kedoshim, it must be that you could not possibly have understood this without giving you Tazria and Mitzora. So Hashem says, I need to tell you this. I need to tell you what I'm about to tell you right after Parshas Shmini, the beginning of Shmini, but I can't, because I haven't spoken to you about Tuma and Tara and Kashrus. And if you recall from the past couple of weeks, Kashrus isn't Kashrus. Kashrus is a horrible word. It's a horrible word. We should eradicate, not the word. The word is good. It's improperly used. It's such a misnomer. Kashrus doesn't mean animals you can eat. Tuma and Tara are the laws that the Torah uses to tell you what you can eat. It's the same words to describe the Tuma that happens with death and with birth and with a period and with emissions. It's the same word that's used for animals. The same word. It's not a different word, kosher. It's not true. It's Tameh and Tahar. Period. End of story. So it means that Hashem couldn't tell you that until he told you the concepts of Tuma and Tara. Why would that be? Well, if you look at the very end of Parshas Mitzora, what does a person have to go through in order to become tahor? Well, he has to shave his head. The Mitzora has to shave his head, and a person then he has to immerse himself, and he has to wait 7 days. And then on what day is he tahor? On what day is he pure? Yom Hashmini, the 8th day. Similarly to a person who's a Zav or a Zava, they're pure on Yom Hashmini, on the 8th day. Well, what Parsha were we in before we began our whole tangent? Parshas Shmini, by Yom Hashmini, and it was on the 8th day. So you understand that whatever was happening before Nadav and Avihu died, that started this whole tangent that we ended up going on, whatever started that is happening on Yom Hashmini, and it ends exactly where it started, with the concept of Yom Hashmini. So Acharei Mos picks up right where we left off, and it starts talking about the offering the offerings that Aaron has to do. So Aaron can't go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim if he's not very careful, because if he goes in and he's not careful, he dies. And he should go in very carefully on Yom Kippurim. And when he comes in on Yom Kippurim, he brings these animals, one for an Ola and one for a Chatos, and then he takes these 2 goats and they look exactly the same. This is one of my favorite parts of the Torah because it makes no sense. You have 2 goats, Shnei Seirim for a Chatas, and one is La Hashem and one is La Azazel. So one I'm going to sacrifice, and this goes by lots, because for some reason you have to actually draw lots for this purpose. Why? it's bizarre. I mean, it's mamish bizarre. And you take one animal and you kill it and you make it mamish like a carbon chatas, right? You do everything that you do. You do zrikas hadam, you throw the blood, you put it on the mizbeach, like every other proper carbon. That's what you do with the first goat. But you know what happens with the other goat? The hasair asher Allah hagorola azazel, and the goat which fell out on the lots to be La Azazel. You know what we're going to do with this one, right? Spoiler alert, we're going to throw it off a cliff in the middle of the desert. Huh? That's hard enough to understand on its own. Why you're taking a goat and throwing it off a cliff instead of putting it on God's altar. I mean, if it's a carbon to Hashem, you should probably put it on the altar. It's very, very strange, but we'll get there. What am I going to do with this goat? Hasayir asher Allah hagorah Azazel yomar chai lifnei Adonai lechaper alav l'shalach oso la'azazel hamidbar. After the Torah tells you that you take the sa'ir, the first goat, and you make it into a regular carbon chatas, after the Torah tells you that, one second, please. Yeah, go out this way to the right. And sorry, guys, we're experiencing a little difficulty exiting. You want to put on your waist? Okay. Sorry about that. Once again, you take the sa'ir, the goat, and you kill it. And the second goat, you're going to throw off a cliff. But instead of the Torah merely telling you, and the second goat you take to a cliff and throw it off, instead of that, it says, and the second goat, which was chosen, La'azazel, Yomar Chai Lifnei Hashem Lechaper Alav, will remain alive, Yomar Chai, will remain standing alive before Hashem to atone for him, to send it La'azazel, to send it off a cliff. Why does the Torah say it will remain alive? Just tell me that you don't kill it. If you tell me all you have to do is not say anything here, and then when it's time to take that goat and throw it off a cliff, say, and that goat you'll throw off a cliff. Why does it have to point out that it should be Yo'amar Chai, it will remain alive? It's very, very strange. And it mentions even again, later on in the pasuk, it says again, and the goat which was Omar Chai, and the goat which is alive. Well, obviously, like when it says the smicha, one of the things that we do with the carbon is Aaron takes his hands and puts it on the head of the particular animal and does a vidoy, and does an admission of sorts, and does an admission of sorts. Well, obviously you're not doing smicha on a dead goat, so all it has to say is, and he takes his hands and does smicha on the goat. I know it's the live goat, so why does the Torah keep stressing that this goat is still alive? I know it's still alive. Very, very bizarre. I want to tell you what I think is happening here. I don't know that what I'm telling you is true, but I'm going to be honest with you and tell you what I'm thinking. The inyan of kapara, we've discussed this in years past. The idea of kapara, of atonement, does not mean atonement. That's a terrible, terrible word, atonement. I don't know what atonement means. It's forgiveness or atonement. The word kapara means covering. The word kapara means covering, which is why the first time that it comes up in the Torah is by Parshas Noach, where it says that you will cover the ark with a covering. And it says, B'chafar ta'oso mibais mechutz ba'kofer. Kofer is a covering, literally a covering. The golden, golden gush, this big block of gold with the cherubs, with the keruvim that goes on top of the aron is called the kaporet. Kaporet. Why is it called kaporet? Because it's machaper. Because it's a covering. It goes on top of the aron, for goodness sakes. And that's why, when you give slicha or mechila, you give slicha. If I forgive you, you don't give slicha on. You give slicha too. But when you're mechaper, when you atone, you don't atone for. You atone on. Lechaper al nafshosechem. Lechaper al chataschem. You always are mechaper on. Why are you mechaper on? Because it's a covering. Coverings go on. Okay. Well, how can you ever really be mechaper for anything? It's like you say sorry to God, and because you said sorry to God, He says, okay, well, you're going to say some magic words, and you're going to sprinkle some magic water with a hyssop and some fairy dust and a little bit of blood from the right kind of animal, and then I'll forgive you because you did a terrible thing. But as long as you do the magic sprinkles, God forgives you. Really? No. Let me tell you what's happening here. We're going to have to go back. I'm sorry. If this is a review for you, you know what? If you know this so well that it's boring, then why are you even on this podcast? You should be out telling other people and spreading this understanding, okay? So at the worst, this will be Chazara for you. And I suspect for many, it'll be new. The purpose of the Mishkan is a continuation of the connection between Hashem and the Jews on Har Sinai. It's a connection between Hashem and the Jews that continues, just like it happened on Har Sinai, that Hashem and the Jews literally saw each other panim b'panim. There was a Shekhinah there. There was a presence of Hashem. So too, in the Mishkan, there's going to be a presence of Hashem. Well, then what's the difference between Har Sinai and a Mishkan? Why does Har Sinai's holiness go away the second the whole party's over, and the holiness of the Mishkan never goes away? What's the difference? I'll tell you what the difference is. Very, very simple. Har Sinai was God coming out to us. Har Sinai was Hashem coming out and saying, hey guys, see the world for what it really is? It's all just me. It's all just me, the designer. It's all just me, the creator. It's all just me, the artist, the one who made this. That's what Har Sinai is. Do you know what the Mishkan is? Now that you've showed us, we will recreate it. We, the humans, the Jews, Yisrael, the people, we will reverse engineer Har Sinai so that we can open up the portal, so as it were, so that we can pull back the curtain, as it were, so that we can see the creator and the designer of the simulation. That's what the Mishkan is. The Mishkan is our response to Har Sinai. Well, if that's the case, then we probably now understand why it takes place on Yom HaShmini, because Hashem's process is 7 days. Shmini is where we pick up with this. That's of course why the beginning of Parshas Tazria, when it says that a woman will be Timeya, Uvayom HaShmini Yimo B'sar Laso. The 8th day you do Mila, because that's your input. That's not my input. And that's why, again, when a person becomes Tahor, it's Yom HaShmini. That's always why it's the 8th day. The 8th day is our input. This has all sorts of, by the way, connections with Hanukkah, and that's why it's Shemen, but I'm not going to go into that right now because I don't think it's necessary. It's just cute and interesting. Well, if the Mishkan is us reverse engineering the simulation to connect to Hashem, reverse engineering the world, understanding, seeing things for what it really is, well, if that's the case, what do you think the likelihood that you'll ever be perfect and ever do 100% of an understanding is? That would be zero. That would be zero. Even if you do everything as right as you possibly can, and you understand everything as deeply as you possibly could, doesn't matter. Your avoda for Hashem is not the way that God envisions your avoda for Hashem. It's not the way God understands what you're doing with the avoda for Hashem. You are severely, severely handicapped in terms of your. Well, first of all, you're finite. How's that for a handicap? You're finite, and you're dealing with the infinite. That's why you always require kapara, even if you haven't sinned yet. Tell me something. Why in the beginning of Parshas Truma, before there was an ego, before there was any sin, the Torah already tells you that you're going to have to be lechaper al nafsho seichem. You're going to have to atone for sins on your soul. Atone for your soul. What do you atone for your soul? We didn't do anything wrong yet. Oh, he's talking about the ego. The ego hasn't happened yet. Because kapara is inherently there. There is no other way that you can have a Mishkan without the idea that you're going to require chatas and you're going to require kapara. Everything you do right is still being done incorrectly on some level. Well, watch this. How come the Kohen shows up with a chatas and an ola? Oh, well, I mean, because you need one of each, right? Because it's good to have one, one is like a bad thing that you did and the other is very elevated, right? No, that's not why. I mean, sure, that's why. That's not why. Of course it's echad le'olah ve'echad lechatat. And of course by the Mitzorah it's going to be shnei tziporim, one which dies and one which goes free. And of course by the Yoledet, one will die and one will go free. The whole concept of hate is the fact that there's death and rebirth, the fact that you're imperfect and you have to cover over your imperfection. But when you cover over your imperfection with kapara, it doesn't mean that you hide it, like you cover a bad scent under a lot of cologne, right? Or they call it the French bath. It's disgusting. It's not what we mean. We mean that you are a consistently evolving snowman. As you roll in the snow and pick up new layers, the snow is clean. The new layer is the new you. It's the rebirth. That's kapara. Kapara doesn't mean that you do something wrong and then you say some magic words or check some boxes and 16 Hail Marys and you pay a check of penance to the church or the shul and then you're fine. God forgives you. No, it means you changed. Kapara means you're not the same person. You're someone else. You're covered. You have been mitzupeh. You have now become a new reality. That new reality doesn't bear any connection to the previous sin, to the previous problem. That's what chatat does, and that's what kapara does. That's what kapara is. And it's inevitable that everything you do has an element of incorrect. Everything. Even your ola offering. Even when you're offering things to Hashem and you're doing the best that you can, the avoda in the temple, some of what you're doing is incorrect and misunderstood. Always. Well, that means that when the Kohen takes the two goats, and he kills one as a chatat, and one goes la azazel, why does it we throw it off a cliff? And so we've spoken about it in the past. The Ramban here is impossible to do without. You have to look at the Ramban and understand it, but that's not what we're going to do today. The reason that you throw one goat off a cliff, a reason why you throw one goat off a cliff, and it's Yo'amar Chai, the Torah goes out of its way to stress that this goat will be kept alive, is because after you kill the first goat, you're still doing avoda. You're still doing avoda, you're still doing service. What is going to be mechaper? What is going to cover over the service that you're still doing after you already brought that one? What about all of the incorrect thoughts or incomplete thoughts or imperfect thoughts and actions that you're doing now from now until the end of this particular avoda? There has to be one of the goats kept alive. Yo'omar Chai. You'll keep it alive to kill it later, to cover all the mistakes you're making currently doing the avoda mikdash on Yom Kippur. Keep it alive. And when you do the smicha on that, the samach yado rosh ha'seir hachai, the living one, because you couldn't kill it yet, you have to keep it alive until you're finished, because you're still making mistakes. But what that means is you're not putting this one on the altar. Hashem says throw that one off a cliff, meaning God is folding into His actual service the understanding that you're messing up and making mistakes. God says, do you know what you're going to do for my service? You're going to take a pinch of my service and throw it off a cliff, meaning you're going to embrace the idea and accept the fact that even when you do great service, it's not perfect service. Throw it off a cliff. That's going to be rolled into the service. That's the Sa'ir HaChai and Yo'amar Chai. Now, this is also why Shnei B'nai Aaron died. As soon as they died, Moshe says to Aaron, Moshe says, wow, that's what Hashem meant when he said, B'krovai Kadesh, that through those who are closest to me, I will be sanctified. Meaning, says Rashi, Aaron Achi, Yodea Hayisi, Shahamishkan, Omedes Leiskadesh B'miyuadav Shomako. Hayisi Sover Obiopach. I knew that the Mishkan was going to be inaugurated with some kind of death. I thought it would be you or me. Now I see it's them. Wow, they must be so great. You're telling me that the Mishkan can't be inaugurated without somebody dying? What kind of a religion is this? This is some kind of like Aztec, take the virgin up the hill, rip her heart out? That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, think what it means. Hashem is saying to you, you are now opening the portal between heaven and earth. You are now creating a synthesis between the designer and the simulation. Be very careful, because everything that happens in this world that is real, meaning at 4, fire is going to come out of the heavens and it's going to connect all of these metal shiny objects in the temple. If you happen to be touching one when that happens, do you know what's going to happen to you? It's what we call electrocution, and you will die. You'll get the greatest attention in the world. I know. But if you go too close to a black hole, you get spaghettified. It's inevitable. So Hashem said to Moshe, I connect to you in that building, in that in the world of that building. No mistakes. No oops. If be oops, has to be perfect. If there's oops, there's dead. If there's oops, there's dead. It's inevitable. Oops, dead. To Aaron, I knew this was going to happen. I knew that somebody would make some kind of a mistake on some kind of level. It had to happen. Wow, I thought it would be you or me. And it turns out it's them. Wow. Do you understand that the avoda on Yom Kippur, that means that we're saying we understand Hashem, but we're imperfect. That's all he wants. Hashem wants us to understand that we're imperfect, that we have to keep getting better and better and better all the time. That's the avoda. Echad le'olah ve'echad le'chatat. One, recognizing that you make mistakes, and the other one, recognizing that you want to aim for the sky and show an olah. An olah is not a carbon of thanks. An olah is a carbon of recognition. It's a carbon of recognition of the designer of the universe. That's what the olah offering is. So on the first hand, you go, wow, I recognize that Kedosh Baruch Hu created the world as a designer. I'm cosmically important. This is amazing. On the second hand, oh, excuse me, I just lost my Zoom call. Second, is it still here? Hope this is still going. On the other hand, we realize also that there's a chatas. We realize also that there is a sin offering, because our mistakes are inevitable. Wait 1 second. I don't know why I can't see myself here, and I don't know if you guys hear me. Can somebody give me a thumb if you still hear me? Okay, good. Baruch Hashem. Very nice. Excellent. Now, pardon me for just one moment. The boys bring us water to wash out. Yeah, thank you. The main issue with Har Sinai. Oh, you can't hear me. You can't see me. That's so weird. Let's try that. Let's see if that works. All right. Okay. The main issue in Har Sinai, from the perspective of Kedosh Baruch Hu worried about the Jews, was people coming too close and ending up in a place where they're not supposed to be. Well, why? Well, first of all, I'll show you that that's true. We established it, by the way. We established it in Parshas Yisro, but we'll reestablish it right now. What does Hashem say? What does Hashem say to Moshe when Moshe goes up? To prepare to take the Torah on Har Sinai, he says, "Raid ha'ed ba'am pan yarsu Hashem leros v'nafal mimenu rav." Go down and warn the people that they can't get too close to the mountain because they'll die. And Moshe says, "What are you talking about? Lo yuchal ha'am lalos al Har Sinai." The people know they can't go. You already told us that we're not allowed to get too close to the har, to the mountain. Like, we know that. And Hashem says, Lech raid, go down. And yeah, I know I told you. Tell him again. Why do I have to tell him again? Because the whole thing that this is about is mechitzot, is spaces, is areas, is designated areas that people can cross and people can't cross. Alignments, systems. You belong here and not there. Don't overstep your bounds. You overstep your bounds, you're dead. Of course, what happened at the night of Har Sinai? Nadav and the Avihu and the Zikanim broke through a mechitza. So we said, "Vayiru es Elohei Yisrael, ve'alatzi lei b'nei Yisrael lo shalach yado, vayechzu es Elohim vayachlu vayishtu." They broke a mechitza that day. But Hashem says, "I'm not going to kill you. I'll wait." And it happens again. When does it happen again? When did they break a mechitza again? When did you overstep again? Yom HaShmini, when they overstepped and did something that they weren't supposed to do, that no one told them to do, to take this offering and bring it into the temple. They did it and they died. Same exact thing. Well, look at the Parsha, because it's so interesting. Because if you look at the Parsha, you know what you're going to find? First, you're going to take the blood. Aaron's going to take the blood, and he's going to throw it lifnei kaporet. And then he's going to stand in between. He's going to stand in between the curtain and the mizbeach on this side, and then he's going to stand in between the mizbeach and the outside on this side, and then he's going to turn this way. And you're like, well, this is, it's very specific. It's very specific. Why is it so specific? What it's saying is that once you get into the Kodesh, not just in the Kodesh, really in the Mikdash, once you get into the Mikdash, everything's about areas. Everything's about zones. So that means that even if you stand in the Kodesh itself, the Kodesh is the room that has the menorah and the table and the golden altar. Even if you're in that room, there is a difference in zones between this side of the golden altar and that side of the golden altar. This side of the golden altar is closer to the Holy of Holies. That side of the golden altar is closer to the Azara, to the outside. Those are different zones. And again, if you read, you know what it says? It keeps saying, Vayetze, and he'll leave this one, and he will come close to that one. And Aaron will leave from the golden altar, and he'll come close to the curtain. And then he'll go, Mi beis la paroches, from inside the curtain. It's all about zones. It's all about not overstepping, not stepping outside of our mechitzos, not going past where we can be, lest we get, quite literally, spaghettified. That's the idea, I believe, of the Sarla Azazel, and that's the idea of Kapara. I wanna talk for a moment about Nefesh. I'm gonna talk for a moment about Nefesh. It says that, well, do you know what's gonna happen? Anybody who sacrifices an animal in the camp or outside the camp, but he didn't bring it to the Mizbeach, he didn't bring it to the Mishkan to go in front of the Mizbeach of Hashem to bring the carbon for Hashem. Dam shafach. It will be like considered blood that man has spilled. He has spilled blood. He's a murderer. And he's going to get cursed. He's going to die. And you're like, what? He sacrificed an animal in his house in Miami Beach in his backyard, and he didn't know he has to bring it to Beis HaMikdash, and he's a murderer? It doesn't really seem like he's a murderer. I think what you mean to say, Hashem, is that if I bring a carbon in my backyard, I'm not allowed to do that because you said all of carbonos have to be in Jerusalem, in the temple. Doesn't make me a murderer. I didn't murder the goat. I killed the goat. I'm allowed to kill the goat. If I would have killed the goat in Jerusalem, you'd be very happy. I killed the goat in Miami Beach, you're very, very upset. So the problem is not the killing of the goat. The problem is the geography. He's a murderer. It's the wrong adjective. Well, there's a lot of dam in this parsha, isn't it? A lot of dam. Don't eat blood. That's why I said don't eat blood. Don't eat blood, don't eat blood, don't eat blood. And it will be if you go and you kill an animal, you take the blood far and you'll cover it. Why? Because the dam is the nefesh. Because the soul is in the blood. What the heck does that mean? Have you ever seen a soul in blood? How much blood is in a soul? And how much of a soul is in the blood? And what color is a soul? Soul's the wrong word. Maybe not. I don't know that it's the wrong word. I certainly didn't understand it correctly. Here's what I think it means. We'll talk more deeply about this when we actually give the shir on the purpose of the world. But for right now, we'll just give you the Rashi Prakim. I think it'll suffice for this. All of creation, whether animate or inanimate, all of it is governed by the exact same pattern. All of it. There's not one physics for living things and one physics for not living things. There's not one physics for Earth and one physics for Venus and one physics for Xylon X. It doesn't work that way. There's just one physics. There's one pattern. The only difference between animate and inanimate, the only difference between living and non-living is the ability to experience the pattern for yourself. That's the only difference. A rock is just as much a testament to a designer as a human being is. Just as much. The same physics and atomic structure of the rock. It screams design every bit as much as your prefrontal cortex, which is just a cooler design. Meaning a Tin Lizzie, a Ford Tin Lizzie screams design every bit as much as a Tesla. It's just the Tesla's a better design. So
The difference, as we said, is the experience. Do you know what the word nefesh means? I think nefesh refers to the experience of interaction with something. That's what a nefesh is. Interactive experience. The first time the word nefesh comes up is actually referring to someone who doesn't have a nefesh, the way that we think of it. Refers to Hashem. Vayom hashvi'i shavas vayinofash. Vayinofash. Nefesh. Hashem nefeshed. Hashem nefeshed? What does that mean, he nefeshed? Actually, it says before that, right? The Vayi Adam Nefesh Chaya. What does that mean? Means that for 6 cycles of chaos and order, the world just kept spinning forward. And then after Hashem had completed the entire pattern, Shavas, he stopped, Vayi Nofash, and he experienced and related to that which he had made, that which was Tov Ma'od, the world. That's Vayi Nofash. So Nefesh is the ability to experience and interact. Do you know what all things that experience the world and have consciousness, you know what they have? Blood. They have blood. You have blood, and the squirrel has blood, and the bird has blood, and the cow has blood. Did you know that? All have blood. A bird and a goat has experience and awareness in the world just like you. You're more complex than the bird. You're more intelligent, hopefully, than the cow. But the cow experiences pain exactly the way you do. The cow experiences the world like you. It's got blood. Blood and life. Nefesh is not for humans to tinker with. You know what humans can take? Basar. They can take flesh. They can't take nefesh. When you have removed all of the nefesh from an animal, do you know what it is now? Now it's basar. It's not nefesh anymore. Oh, it used to be nefesh. Now it's just basar. Once the blood is taken out, the animal is something else. It's not an animal anymore. Now it's a snack. Now it's a snack. If a person, God forbid, takes nefesh, to give to Hashem, the creator of the world, if he takes nefesh and rededicates it back to the source of nefesh, and he doesn't do it in God's house, God says, excuse me, who gave you the right to take that nefesh? That's nefesh. That's blood. You're a murderer. You're a murderer. I allow you to make use of nefesh when you bring karbanos. I allow you. I condone it in a certain way. If you do it the wrong way, you're a murderer. Dam yechashev la'ishahu dam shavach. Because cosmically, there's no difference in blood. There's no difference in blood between the human and the non-human. It all reflects higher order consciousness, nefesh. That's why that thing keeps coming up again and again, I believe, in this week's Parsha, which is also the only thing that's mechaper on your nefesh. So what do we throw at the Mizbeach and the Kapores and the Paroches and the Ol Moed? What do we throw on it in order to be mechaper? Dam. Nefesh, experience. Because we recognize that our experience, incomplete, wrong, finite, flawed. Recognize it. That's okay. It's part of the system. It's part of the system. It's the avoda. Death is part of life. That's why we have tuma and tara statuses. That's why when there's birth, there's tuma and tara. That's why there's a way to get back to tara when a person's become tameh. And the way to get back is to go through a ritual of death and rebirth. That's why we shave them down and put them through water. What do we do with the birds? This is like, I don't think this could be any more symbolically obvious. You take two birds that look exactly the same. You kill one, you squeeze its blood into a cup, fill up the cup with water. There's blood in the water. The blood has to be seen in the water, but it's Mayim Chaim out of a living source. You take the living bird, stick it in the water and blood of the dead bird, and let it go free. Have you ever seen a birth? I have. Thank God. 5. You take the tzipor hachaya and you dip it bidam hatzipor hashchuta, and you let it go free. Death and rebirth, tuma and tara. Kaparas avonos. You make mistakes, you move on. It's part of the system. And the system has to turn 24/7, 365. You can never turn it off. You can never make a mistake. Ever. Because it's unforgiving. Physics is what physics is. You have to be mechaper al nafsho seichel. The truth is, I really wanted to say more. I have ideas about Kedusha too. Let's say just one thing. Okay, just one thing about Parshas Kedoshim. I think that we really should meet Mirz Hashem in the beginning of the week, and at least when I have a chumash, and talk a little bit about Kedoshim. You'll notice that at the end of Acharei Mos, at the end of Parshas Acharei Mos, we have the arayos, we have the forbidden relationships, and it says, well, a person can't uncover the nakedness of his father and his mother and his brother and his sister and his aunt and his sister-in-law and his daughter-in-law and the granddaughter, right? Goes through the whole thing. And then in the end of Parshas Kedoshim does the same thing again. Oh my gosh. Like, how many times are you going to tell me that you're going to throw me off a cliff for being gay? Like, how many times? You're telling me again, and you're telling me in a different order. In 2 twin Parshas that I'm going to read together on Shabbos. Why? Well, I'm going to give you something really cool to think about tonight at the table. Do you know what I think is the most obvious difference between the arayos in Parshas Acharei Mos and the arayos in Parshas Kedoshim? Super, super simple. Here's the difference. The arayos in Parshas Acharei Mos are personal. The arayos in Parshas Kedoshim are communal. Look at the language. So the arayos at the end of Parshas Acharei Mos talk from the evolutionary perspective of the human being to his particular genetic bush or tree. At the end of Parshas Kedoshim, it's societal. And the most obvious way to discern this is to see that the language in Acharei Mos is singular and the language in Kedoshim is plural. And I think that will give you the key in Mirz Hashem to understanding the difference in the arayos. I'd like to dedicate today's learning to the neshama of Shalom Dober Ben Yosef, Neshama Shab Aliyah. We should hear good things. There was I didn't want to talk about this last night because, well, for a couple reasons, but the people who see this and hear this are not the same people as the people who see and hear a lot of the stuff that goes up on Facebook. So it says in the Torah that Kivan shenitan rishus lamashchis eino mavchin beit tzaddik l'rasha. Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives permission for the destructive agent, it doesn't discern between tzaddik and rasha. When Magefa happens, when plague happens, it doesn't stop and say, oh, excuse me, oh, I'm so sorry, you're the Novominsker Rebbe, I won't give you the virus. It doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. Eino mavchin ben tzaddik l'rasha. Now, if you think that coronavirus is coronavirus, this is like, it's driving me crazy because I see it all the time, right? Turn on, what's coronavirus? We're all going to be talking about, in 10 years, we're going to be talking about coronavirus and how coronavirus made everything shut down. Okay, I'm going to say it. You know what? I'm going to say what I wanted to say. I'm going to say it. So you'll notice that Haredim got particularly punched in the face with Corona. Okay, the ultra-Orthodox around the world, particularly in Israel, particularly in Kiryat Sefer and Bnei Brak and Yerushalayim and Williamsburg and Lakewood and Brooklyn, got just decimated. And the finger pointing, oh, so you see, the Gedolim don't know anything. The Gedolim don't know anything because they didn't shut down the schools, and the Dade County Public Schools knew more than Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and da 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 da. There's that. And then you read the other blogs going, no, the Haredim really believe that Torah study is going to save them from tetanus. No. That's patently false. It's patently false. That's not what Haredim believe. It's a tremendous misunderstanding. And here's how I see it. I think this is very simple. The same thing as people are taking the government to task and saying, if you would have shut down the country 3 weeks before, we wouldn't have had 70,000 deaths. Yeah, that might be true. However, I would like to call your attention to one simple differentiation before and after. You're telling me that if I would have shut down the entire economy a month before, thousands of people fewer, right, would have died. Thousands of people would have still be alive. Yeah. But we didn't know that at the time. Yeah, but this guy said and that guy said. Yeah, this guy said and that guy said, but we didn't know. We didn't know. Do you know how I know this is true? Because we did shut it down eventually. You can't cavalierly shut down the economy. Are you crazy? You cavalierly ground every single flight in the country? You cavalierly shut down all the Starbucks? You better be damn sure. Well, at a certain point, we were damn sure and we shut everything down. That doesn't mean that they made a mistake. Everyone's smarter looking backwards and saying, oh, you should have. Thank you, Monday morning quarterback. Well, guess what? It's not that we think that money outweighs lives, because if we thought that, we'd be Sweden and we'd be open for business. But we think that the economy is very important and it also means lives. Well, do you know what very religious Jews think is very important? Torah, learning, davening, very important. Which means we don't shut it down cavalierly. Of course, when we saw what it was and the body bag started rolling, we shut it down. Well, all of us except the people who are too good to shut it down. That doesn't mean that the Gedolim were stupid because they didn't shut it down 3 weeks before, and it doesn't mean that the federal government was stupid for not shutting it down 3 weeks before. It's the same thing. It's identical. It means that you don't shut this down until you know how bad it is. And then when we know how bad it is, oh my gosh, shut it down right now. But what that also means is that this was tailor-made as a punch in the face for Jews. Hashem sent this understanding what would happen. It's made for us. Rabbi Janowski talks often about the medrash that says that really all bad things in the world should only be reserved for Jews, but, it doesn't look good, so Hashem let other people also get sick. The medrash is that. It means, what do you think? I did this, I created these things so you'll be able to understand your behavior and what needs to change, but really it's catered to you. Coronavirus, that if it shuts down the whole world, it's not the what, it's the how. Coronavirus is how Hashem shut down the world. It's not what Hashem did. It's how he did it. We're looking at it wrong. We're looking at it wrong. And it's addressed to us. For sure, it's addressed to us. And it doesn't mean it was a mistake at the time, necessarily. At a certain point, it's just Rosh Lanut at that point, yeah, for sure. Now you're just a Posheya if you keep open. But before that, I don't personally have any ill will towards the tremendous scholars who didn't know what it was because they're not clairvoyant. And I don't have any bad feelings towards the government for not shutting everything down 3 weeks before. I just don't think that makes any sense. I'm going to end with just a little bit of a way of looking at this, okay? Because, and this is going to be very, very important if we do get together again for Kedoshim. This is super important, okay? When we're talking about patterns, if I say to you 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, what's the next digit in the pattern? The next digit would be a 1, right? What's the next number in the pattern? You go 11, right? 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Obviously, what comes next is 11, and I say wrong. The next one's a 2, because it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. What do you say then? You'd be like, yeah, but you fooled me. Yes, I know I fooled you, but here's the point, okay? Here's the point. When you're in the pattern, when you're in the chaotic element of the pattern, you don't know the next digit because you don't necessarily see the pattern. The next number could be many things. You only know it when it repeats. You only recognize the pattern when it completes itself. If the pattern hasn't completed itself, you don't know what it is. It could be any number of things. So I'm going to give you that to think about and chew on, being inside of all the chaos that's happening today. We're quite literally inside of the chaos. This, by the way, has a lot of ramifications towards the Pekida and Zechira and things like that. But I think this is enough of a mental roller coaster for this week. And Hashem should have an aliyah. We should all have a beautiful Shabbos. Stay safe. Much love.